Hi guys, Canadian Hunter here. So what I got for you today is a video that I'm just going to go over some of the things that I do to accurize my rifles. And if you're watching this video, you probably are curious or you want some tips to maybe make your gun or your rifle more accurate. These will work for absolutely any gun. Really what you're going to be hearing from me is a lot of the same thing, which is I work on having consistency and repeatability with all my guns. I want them to be consistent. I want to be able to repeat the same sort of accuracy. And sort of how I see it is I break it down into two categories. I'm going to call it my fixed variables, and I have my external variables. So fixed variables are anything to do with the gun itself, and I feel like these are the ones that you have maximum control over. Getting your gun set up properly so that it has the potential to shoot well, and then the next thing you have to deal with are all of your external variables, things like weather, wind, the ammo itself you're shooting. You as the shooter, you're probably the biggest external variable that you have to deal with. So and I think for myself, I've really sort of been really pushing heavy now into really accurate shooting, or what I think is accurate shooting. And the one that I'm the most addicted to right now is 22 LR accurate shooting. Last year I was doing tons of center fire, lots of reloading. Going into the winter time this year, I really got into 22 LR stuff really heavy. If you watch my channel, you've probably seen there's tons of 22 LR related videos. And ever since I've picked up this new CZ gun, it's really just transformed what I think a 22 LR is capable of. I mean, the groups I'm shooting with this, albeit at 50 yards, I never thought were really that attainable with a 22 LR, or not consistency and not with any kind of repeatability. Like where you might have a good day, you might have the odd good group, but then back to the same old sort of okay groups. So the first thing that I look at is, when I was building this gun, so I'm going to use my CZ45 as my example, is things that matter to me. Barrel, is the barrel free floated? It's a huge thing for me, and it's a huge fixed variable. I mean, you definitely want to have, for consistency and repeatability, I think it's key to have a free floated barrel. Picking up something, and for tool wise, something like one of these Wheeler torque wrenches is super key. I feel, I want to be able to torque my action screws. I want to be able to torque them at different settings. Maybe I'm going out and I'm going to do a sheet like this. And maybe I'm going to do 20 inch-pounds on the action screws for the top row. And then I'll do 25 inch-pounds and just keep sort of building up like that. And, sort of finding that sweet spot. And if you're just doing the old turning the wrench to feel, maybe you can find that sweet spot. But if you take your stock, your action out of the stock, well, it's lost now. You don't really know where you're at. And the same thing goes for the rings. I mean, these do have, settings they should be set to. I think it's pretty important to set those correctly. It's a bit more important when you're shooting larger calibers, magnum calibers especially. You don't want that scope moving, just do the recoil. But back to sort of how I build my guns up. So when I bought this gun, first thing I looked at was the barrel free floated? And it was. If it wasn't, I would have relieved it. The next thing I looked at was, did I want to bed the action in the stock? I decided not to. I just sort of thought that it fit quite well, and it shot good, so I wasn't too concerned about it. Bases, that's key. Are you going to use the bases that are on the gun? Are you going to replace them? In this case, I replaced them because I didn't like the dovetail on the CZ, so I wanted more of a Weaver style or Picatinny style, and I actually wanted a canted base. This is a 25 minute of angle canted base. I do that to put more minutes of elevation back in my scope. Rings, that's the next big one. I think people overlook rings. I think people, maybe even spend the money on a scope, but people just sort of don't think rings make that big of a difference. I don't say you have to spend $300 on rings, but spend a good $60 or $100. I use the Vortex Viper rings. In Canada, these cost about, well, they're pretty much $100, $90, $100. And I like them. I think they're a good set of rings. Scope, you know, that was the next one. When I built this gun up, I didn't want to spend the money initially on this scope. I'd spent already enough money on the gun and some other things. So I'd used a Bushnell scope to begin with, but when I had the money, I upgraded to this Leupold VX2 6-18 by 40. Beautiful scope. I absolutely love this scope. It's one of my favorite new scopes I have right now. It's crystal clear, typical Leupold quality. Parallax is on the front, but I actually don't mind that with a bench gun. It's just a beautiful scope, so don't overlook the scope by any means. I mean, make sure you know, budget, you know, keep it in budget, but, you know, get yourself a nice scope. Trigger, that was the next one. I didn't really like the trigger on this gun. It was shooting around 2 pounds, and I think trigger is very, very important for shooting consistently and with decent repeatability. And even though it pulled at 2 pounds, when I was first, you know, using this gun, I really just sort of thought the trigger was throwing me off a little bit. So I have some videos if you haven't seen it. I've got a CZ455 trigger mod video. And I dropped this one down to 1 pound, and I verified that with my Wheeler trigger pull. And that's also what I used, because I was doing the method of cutting the spring. So I was cutting it, putting it back in the gun, and I kept doing that until I got it to where I wanted, which was exactly 1 pound. And then it's, you know, bipod. I mean, that's just sort of up to you. You know, you use bags, use a bipod. I like these Caldwell bipods, which have the pivot, and I like the fact that you can lock it down and tighten it down, and you can get your gun nice and level. So that's what I kind of think you're dealing with as far as your fixed variables. I mean, you should be torquing your action screws correctly. You should be torquing any screws that are on this gun should be torqued properly with a torque wrench and and set. Now that you've done that, chances are your gun probably is built well and probably has the potential to shoot well. But then you got to sort of deal with your external variables now. So, you know, ammo. So I'm going to use again 22 LR as an example. I think the trickiest gun to try get accurate is 22 LR, and I think the vast difference in ammo choice is one of the biggest variables you have to deal with, and that's something you have to figure out. I could tell you what works for me, but you know, buying quality ammo helps, but you just got to see what works in your gun. You know, this gun, I was pretty fortunate. Quite a few different ammos worked in it. I settled on Federal Gold Medal Target. Seemed to give me great groups. I was very happy with the groups, and the price was right. So definitely a lot less than, you know, match grade, you know, Target, higher end Target grade or match grade ammo. You know, the next thing you sort of want to deal with is your rest. So what are you using? Again, you know, I find this bag gives me a solid rest. I mean, I see people struggling at the range. I see people, I don't know, they have some funny ways of sort of how they shoot. I guess if it works for them, I've never been able to shoot decently on a bench without using some kind of rest. And this just is for comfort, you know, having that side elbow bag. But, you know, and then, you know, that's it. The rest is you're just dealing with is wind and you. I mean, you need to practice a lot. I mean, that's, if you want to get good, I see it like this. My fixed variables are set, so I know the gun is built right. I know it's got the potential to shoot good. Now I have to just shoot good. And that's why I build these sheets. So I build a sheet like this. I use these Caldwell dots. I do 50 dots, which is 2 boxes of ammo shooting groups of 5. And I shoot probably one of these sheets a week. And because I do it that way, I really get a good feeling for what my gun's capable of, and if I'm having a good day or not. And I think it's key to be, again, you just have to be consistent with your methods. I think you have to be consistent with everything that you do. So that's it, guys. I mean, that's sort of the tips and tricks that I do. In short, You know, you need to be torquing all these screws properly. Your barrel's got to be free floated. Have a quality set of rings. Have a quality base. Have a quality scope. Have a decent rest. And again, when you're sort of getting to your external variables, stay consistent. I mean, even if you have an ammo that isn't working that great for you, stick with it for a while. I mean, shoot it for a while. Do 500 rounds or something. Do 10 of these. Do 5 of these cards. You know, say 500 rounds, and get a feeling for it. And then if you're going to switch up your ammo, switch up to something different. Stick with it for a while. And I see too many people just jumping around. It's just every time they go to the range, they're shooting different ammo, and I think that's a really poor way of doing it. I think you're just going to have, you know, you're not going to get any consistency that way, and you're not going to know whether you're improving on your skills. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is just sort of some of the things that I do to better my shooting skills. If you like this video, please hit that like button, and as always, please subscribe. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.